Radio show guy by afternoon, dad by night. I can promise you this, our next guest, Roddy Jones, knows a little bit about that same deal. Roddy joins us on a Thursday afternoon. He does the radio show. He does the dad thing. He's as busy as I am. Roddy, what's up, man? Welcome in. And I got to tell you, congratulations to your Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets for a heck of a ball game in Death Valley. I would say Saturday afternoon, evening, and also night. That was a long game.
Yeah, all of Saturday is what the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, what it took for them to lose in heartbreaking fashion. But it was a good performance by Georgia Tech. I give Coach Collins and those guys a lot of credit. When anytime you play a team as good as Clemson that closely, it's a good statement for your program and where you're at. Now you just got to duplicate it against North Carolina.
And that's what I told Tiger fans. Keep your eyeballs on that game. If you want a kind of a measuring stick here, if North Carolina just slices and dices Georgia Tech this weekend, that's really going to bother a lot of people in Tiger Town. But that'll all happen after Clemson and NC State face off. So first and foremost, Roddy, I have not liked or appreciated as an analyst, and again, I didn't play college sports, so I don't know for sure. You can tell me. I have not really appreciated, hey, they hit us with some looks and some schemes and some structures that we weren't prepared for. Like, to me, that is not a valid excuse for what happened Saturday in Death Valley. You're a former player. You tell me what you thought.
I do feel like it is a valid thing to point out. When the talent difference is so great, though, it's not a valid excuse for what happened. I mean, I remember those early season games where you would go in not really knowing what to expect from these teams and getting a look that maybe you did not spend as much time on, or in Georgia Tech's case, in Clemson's case, a look against Georgia Tech that they are just now breaking out full time for the first time. I mean, that was basically a whole new defense for Georgia Tech that they used on a down in, down out basis. So I get how that can be a little offsetting for a young football team and for a young quarterback in particular. But ultimately, like, you're Clemson, and Georgia Tech is not there yet where they can roll out a defense and just all of a sudden confuse what you've got going on. And as a reference point, look at what happened 2 years ago in Jeff Collins' first season when Georgia Tech went up to Clemson. Now, the talent level for Georgia Tech has improved somewhat since then, but they kind of caught Clemson off guard then, too, with how they lined up. It was completely different than they lined up this year. Trevor had the early interception to Trey Swilling, threw another one right before halftime. It was a bad interception. But that team figured it out and ended up demolishing Georgia Tech. I think the final score was 56-7. That's how it should be when you're playing a team that opens up with a defense that you're not expecting and you are significantly more talented. Like, if it takes a little bit to get going, that's fine, but you eventually have to get going because the talent should take over, and it just didn't against this Clemson offense last week. So I'm a little concerned about Clemson on offense a lot, and I really am.
Yeah, I agree. And I said this just a little bit ago. I think that what amazes me is, like, I think from the outside looking in, we all thought that DJ Uiagalelei would be a willing participant in the run game, sort of like what we've seen from Taj Boyd, what we saw from Deshaun Watson, Kelly Bryant, and to a degree, even Trevor Lawrence. But you go back and watch that Georgia game, and it really felt like DJ wanted to stay in the pocket, wanted to keep his eyes downfield, wanted to showcase his arm. I think for this offense to go to the next level, they've got to compel him or even force him, if that's what it takes, I guess. I don't know how that works exactly, but to be a bigger component in this running attack.
Could not agree with you more. I mean, I think that the thing that we need to realize, and maybe this is just me kind of remembering what I choose to remember, but Clemson doesn't really run their quarterbacks that much early in the season. Usually that's something that gets more involved as the season goes on. But I think that was when you had quarterbacks that were experienced. It was when you had quarterbacks that had played a lot of football, and you knew they were eventually they could just fit in the quarterback run game to really take off what you're doing on offense. I think that you need to almost go the other way with DJ and say, hey, look, let's get you involved running the football so that you can get more comfortable in the games, and that can really get you going throwing the ball. I think the other part of it, Lawton, and I don't know this to be a fact, I'm just speculating, but it's possible that Clemson has some concerns with the backup quarterback position. You know, if DJ were to go down, are they comfortable with Tyson Pumachan this soon after an Achilles injury? Are they comfortable with one of the young freshmen coming in the game? So they may be protecting him as much as anything to save them from having to play with the backup quarterback. But I agree with you, man. Like you have to eventually get him involved in the run game, especially when you're playing teams that are going to go light boxes and to give you more advantage in the run game.
So he's got a big arm. We know that. By the way, Roddy Jones with us here on the program. You can follow Roddy on Twitter right now. Head over there. It's at Roddy Jones 20 from the ACC Network and SiriusXM. So DJ's got a huge arm. I still don't feel like Clemson's testing teams down the field. And I get it. They've got these coverages that are trying to force the issue for Clemson, so to speak. But does it not still stretch the defense if you run some routes that are accentuated by a deep ball that's maybe overthrown by 10 yards versus never even attempting that type of throw? Or, just as the lay guy that's never had to be in the film room and watch it, is that something that you're just not going to do?
No, I think that's something that can be coached, and it's something that should be. He should be advised to take some shots. Like you got Justin Ross and Joe Ngata and Joe and DJ Williams. Like those guys are all bigger recruits than all of the defensive backs that they're going to play this year from other teams. So eventually, yes, just run. Tell Justin Ross, hey, go deep. I'm going to throw it up to you. Let's see what happens. And do that a couple times a game. And honestly, it's something that Clemson did a few years ago with Mike Williams. Like if you remember those Mike Williams, Deshaun Watson teams, when they got in trouble, they eventually just said, all right, look, Mike Williams is better than your corner. And Deshaun Watson's a better quarterback than you can defend. So let's just throw it up and see what happens. And it was back shoulders. It was over the top. It was our guys are better than your guys. Let's go see them make plays. They've done it some. They did it some with T. Higgins. They did it some with Justin Ross in Trevor's sophomore year. But they have not done it much this season with Justin Ross coming back. I think, with his ball skills, maybe he needs to move back outside. But you got to find some way to push the ball down the field, even if you're forcing it a little bit. As long as it's not in double coverage, those guys are big enough, strong enough, and athletic enough to come down and make their fair share of plays.
Couldn't agree more. Roddy Jones with us at Roddy Jones 20 on Twitter. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, Clemson seems still to be, top of the mark in the country, one of the top. No touchdowns given up, 3 straight games. Just such an impressive feat that they put together. It's hard, I think, for people at this point to, quantify, whatever the right term is, what they're seeing. You've got this one team that is elite on one side of the ball, and on the other side, sort of struggling right now. I also hypothesize this. Could some of DJ's issues be manufactured at practice by going up against Clemson's defense? And I know they're not going game speed, but could some of the things, if we believe it's the 6 inches between his ears that are bothering him right now, could any of that be coming from practice?
It could be. It's something I hadn't thought about, but it's a great point. Like if you're taking some of those deep shots in practice throughout camp, and Andrew Booth's coming down with some of those balls instead of Joe Ngata, then yeah, sure, that can creep into your head. The thing that he needs to realize is you're not going to play another corner as good as Andrew Booth all season. So those guys that may look human in practice, you've got to realize that they are superhumans playing against other superhumans in practice, just like he is, So while guys may look normal and mortal when you are on Clemson's campus on the practice field, when you go and play other teams, you've got to trust that, hey, our guys are really, really good and they can go and make some plays. So it's a great point by you. I had not thought of that, but it is a very valid concern when you're talking about a guy that's having the sort of struggles and the hesitation that he's having right now.
Well, look, you know a lot more about what practice looks like than I do for these guys. So I didn't know how, quote unquote, competitive it is. But I mean, that was something that kind of came to me just thinking about what he might deal with on a regular basis from Brent Venables at practice, who, according to everybody that's seen it and been around it, doesn't hold back a whole lot. As a matter of fact, kind of can get kind of tricky at practice as well. This weekend, Roddy Jones will be on the call on the ACC network as Richmond and Virginia Tech face off alongside Wes Durham. You know him from Packer and Durham. And I know you guys have been all around the ACC. I haven't back-checked your schedule. Have you seen NC State yet this year in person? If you have, what is your take on Dave Duran's squad? If you haven't, Roddy, what's your take on what Clemson will see on Saturday?
We have not seen NC State yet this year, and we did have their spring game though, so there is some familiarity with what they've got going on. And look, I think NC State is an experienced team. I thought this offense would be a little bit further along, especially when you look at the struggles that they had against Mississippi State. So I think this is a very solid team. It may very well be the best offense that Clemson has faced so far, at least with where Georgia was game one. I mean, Georgia's gone on and run up the score against everybody since that Clemson game. So maybe they are a good offense and Clemson's just that good on defense. But NC State is going to be a solid offense with a solid run game. I don't think they run the ball quite the way I thought they would this season. Devin Leary has been a little bit up and down, but if he gets hot, he's as good as any quarterback, short of Sam Howell and maybe Brennan Armstrong, the way he's playing, and Kenny Pickett. He's as good as all the rest of them. And then defensively, they're without their leading tackler and their big leader on defense, Peyton Wilson. That's a big loss for them. But it's a 3-3-5 defense that's really experienced. They're talented up front. They are experienced in the secondary, although they can be gotten a little bit. So I expect Clemson to target that secondary and say, hey, look, we're going to make your secondary go make plays against our great receivers. And if they can do that, I think it'll go a long way to boosting the confidence of the Tigers.
Roddy Jones again with us here on Clemson Sports Talk. So you mentioned it, their 3-3-5 defense. That's exactly what Georgia Tech was really showing Clemson this past weekend. I would expect that Clemson's got adjustments that have been made from the standpoint of the running backs. I know you really like Will Shipley. Obviously, Clemson now with Lynn J. Dixon leaving, Kobe Pace still back there, and Dabo Swinney would say, hey, look, if Mikey Dukes cleans some things up, we like him, and we trust Darian Rencher, and we got Phil Maffa if we need him for 4 games, and we're still going to try to redshirt him. You're a former running back. Looking at that defense, if there's an inability to rush the football, is there anything else Clemson missed this past weekend against Georgia Tech that they could have taken advantage of to help get the running backs in the game and out in space that perhaps we might see this weekend that'll help them out?
I think the big thing is they just missed some throws early on that could have loosened up Georgia Tech, in my opinion. You know, there were some tight window throws, not super tight, but like towards the sideline. Some post routes, some stuff in the middle of the field, RPO-wise, that you're trying to take advantage of that DJ just missed. And at that point, I think you're able to help yourself out a little bit. The thing in the run game is like Georgia Tech wasn't being overly complicated in terms of their rush defense. They were just beating Clemson up front. You know, they were kind of playing a light box, daring Clemson to run the football and then collapsing to the ball with an extra defender, whether that be a safety or a linebacker. And I think that up front, Clemson just struggled with the different looks and slants and movement that Georgia Tech did. Nothing all that complicated. It's just a lot of different stuff that you're having to process very quickly. And if those guys aren't on the same page, then it can be very evident very quickly. So I would expect NC State to do something similar. They're a little more stagnant than what Georgia Tech was a week ago. More like what Virginia played against North Carolina, which North Carolina was obviously able to take advantage of. So it'll be interesting to see how Clemson responds to defense that's a little less dynamic in terms of what they do than Georgia Tech. You're going to get a little bit more consistent looks from this NC State team on defense.
Final thing for him, Roddy Jones, again, the ACC Network, Sirius XM as well, and on Twitter at Roddy Jones 20. This game, I think, from the state fan perspective, like they can smell blood in the water, so to speak. I mean, this is an opportunity for them to create an atmosphere that is through the roof and maybe seize a little bit of control in the Atlantic Division of the ACC. Like for the first time in a long time, Clemson wouldn't have control of the league. How electric do you think this environment could be, even though it's a mid-afternoon game, with that 3:30 kickoff? But I would expect Wolfpack fans are going to be feeling themselves on Saturday, for lack of a better term.
They're going to be fired up. And look, all the ill will that state fans were feeling after the Mississippi State game can all be erased if they go out and have a good performance against Clemson and win the football game. And you're right. Like there is a sense amongst the league that Clemson is vulnerable. Superman has bled. Like they have made what's the old saying? Like if you make a god bleed, then people stop believing in them. And
Right.
Clemson has shown that it's mortal. Like So now look, defensively they may be indefatigable, but offensively, when you look at what they've got going on, you got to feel like, all right, if we can score 2 to 3 times, whether it's a scoop and score, a special teams play, or on offense, we got to feel pretty good about our defense being able to hold Clemson under 20 points with what they've put out there so far this year, which is like, it's like bizarro world to even say that. But NC State's defense plays with confidence. They are not going to be shy away from Clemson. There's some bad blood between those two schools, which I absolutely love. And it is going to be the most hostile environment that Clemson's played in this season. And you're talking about DJ Uiagalelei taking big-time snaps. You're talking about Will Shipley taking big-time meaningful snaps. Marcus Tate on the offensive line taking lots of snaps. 3 guys that are very young and in big-time positions that could be influenced by the fact that it's going to be loud and raucous. Carter Finley is one of the best stadiums in the entire conference.
Man, can't wait to see it, Roddy. Safe travels to you. Have fun with Wes this weekend, and we look forward to catching up with you hopefully next week, as long as we can get it in your schedule, my man.
Love it, man. I appreciate it.
Roddy Jones, follow him right now at Roddy Jones 20 from the ACC Network and Sirius XM here on the show that Shakes the Southland. All right, hit that subscribe button. Hit that share button. Let's get more people in hour number 2. Let's get it going. It's on you. We'll hit a quick break. We'll come back and react next.